Not every story begins with gunfire or ends with glory. Some stories start in silence, in the space between memory and mystery, told in whispers, felt in shadows, etched into the hearts of those who never asked to remember, but never could forget. What you're about to hear is more than just a tale. It's a glimpse into what war leaves behind, in the cracks no one sees, moments that defy logic, encounters that blur the line between what is real and what refuses to be explained. If you've ever felt like something was walking beside you in the dark, you're not alone. This is The Trail Between Worlds, and tonight, we walk it together. Fall of 2010, Nuristan Province, Afghanistan, a place where the silence wasn't peace, it was pressure, heavy, unspoken, constant. We were stationed at Outpost Kilo 9, a lonely combat outpost carved into a steep ridge where the only company at night was cold wind and the distant echo of things you'd rather not hear. My name is Lucas Barrett. I was 27, squad leader, Montana-born, war-hardened, and already tired in ways I didn't understand yet. I'd survived ambushes, watched friends get zipped into body bags, heard things in the dark that made grown men grip their rifles tighter. I thought I'd seen it all. But that night, on a routine guard shift, with nothing but night vision goggles and habit to keep us sharp, we saw something that rewired everything we thought we knew. It wasn't Taliban, it wasn't movement, it wasn't human, it was something else entirely. And it didn't come from the shadows. It came from the road. We were just pulling another shift. Same road, same routine, same cold mountain air creeping into our sleeves. Corporal Elliot Hayes stood to my left. Specialist Ryan Mitchell was on my right. Two solid guys, reliable, smart, not the type to spook easy. I lifted my NVGs, did a sweep, then froze. There, down the winding trail, was a boy. Tiny, maybe 10 years old, barefoot, wrapped in a shawl that fluttered with every step. He was leading 4 goats, moving slow, calm, like this was just another night in his life. I blinked, rubbed the lenses, still there. "Elliot," I whispered, "you seeing this?" He adjusted his goggles, paused. "Yeah," he said, "that's a kid." Ryan didn't say a word, but I could hear his breath shift. He saw it too. 3 soldiers, 3 sets of eyes, all seeing the same impossible thing, through goggles that should only show heat. And yet, there he was. I pulled my goggles off, just for a second, and the boy was gone. The goats were still there, clear, visible in the moonlight, 4 of them, moving steady. But the boy, nothing, not even a shadow. I lifted my NVGs again. There he was, same spot, same calm walk. I looked over. "Elliot," I whispered, "take yours off." He did, and froze. He shook his head slowly. "He's not there." Ryan followed, same result. 3 of us, 3 trained soldiers, 3 identical reactions. Goggles on, we saw him. Goggles off, he disappeared. We didn't speak, not right away. Not because we were scared, but because we knew something had shifted, something we couldn't explain, something not covered in any field manual. That road below us suddenly felt older, not just dirt and rock, but something ancient, like it remembered, like it was watching us back. We stayed locked on that trail long after the goats disappeared around the bend. None of us spoke, not for minutes, not even over comms. There wasn't anything to say, because no words could explain what just happened. We'd all seen him, a kid, in the middle of nowhere, visible only through night vision. And now, he was gone, like he stepped out of this world and back into whatever place he came from. Elliot finally broke the silence. "You think it was some kind of trick, like insurgents messing with us?" Ryan shook his head. "That wasn't a decoy. That kid wasn't scared. He wasn't hiding. He just walked." I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because deep down, I already knew. This wasn't enemy movement. It wasn't strategy. It wasn't a mirage. It was something else. And somehow, we were meant to see it. The next morning, we acted like nothing happened. We ate, checked gear, filed our usual morning report, but none of us looked each other in the eye. Something had changed. Elliot was the first to break. He stopped mid-sentence, staring at the ground. "Lucas," he said quietly, "we didn't imagine that, right?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to tell him we were overtired, seeing shadows where there were none. But the truth, I couldn't, because I kept thinking about the goats. How real they looked, how steady they moved, how we never heard a sound, not even their steps. And that road, I couldn't stop watching it. Every break, every smoke, I found myself staring down the ridge, waiting to see him again. But the trail stayed empty. No boy, no goats, just wind and silence. But it wasn't peaceful anymore. It was waiting. That night, Ryan came to my bunk. Didn't knock, didn't speak. He just stood there, holding something in his hand. A piece of fabric. Old, torn, faded blue stripes running across it, just like the shawl the boy was wearing. "Where'd you get that?" I asked. He looked at me. "The fence," he said. "North perimeter, caught on the wire. No alarms triggered. I took it from him. It was cold. Colder than it should have been. Dry, but heavy, like it carried more than just threads. We brought it to Elliot. He didn't say anything at first, just stared. Then quietly, he went to his notebook and drew the boy again. Only this time, the eyes were different. No longer calm, no longer soft. There was a weight behind them now. Something ancient, like he'd seen us before and, somehow, was waiting for us to see him. We brought the fabric to our captain, didn't dramatize it, didn't spin a story, just showed it to him, told him where we found it. He barely looked up. "Probably some local kid," he muttered, "might have wandered too close." But deep down, we knew better. There was no way a child, especially out here, could move through the wire without tripping sensors, without leaving tracks. We checked the cameras, and that's when we saw it. One frame, barely a second. A flicker on the lower trail. Small figure, 4 shapes behind it, then gone. We slowed it down, frame by frame. Same silhouette, same movement, same goat formation. It was him. Again. Elliot stared at the screen, didn't blink. Ryan stepped back, crossed himself. First time I'd ever seen him do that. No one spoke after that, because this wasn't about patrols anymore. It wasn't about war. It was about something older, something that walked without being seen. After that second sighting, everything changed. The mission didn't. The orders didn't. But we did. We still ran patrols, still cleaned our weapons, still logged shifts like before. But underneath all of it, there was something else. A current we couldn't ignore. I stopped brushing off shadows, started watching how the wind moved through the trees, how the dirt shifted at night, how the goats below never made a sound. Ryan. He began sleeping with his boots on, said it made him feel faster, but I think he just didn't want to be caught off guard again. Elliot, he drew less, talked less, started carrying that piece of fabric in his chest pocket, said nothing about it, didn't have to. We all knew. This wasn't just a weird night anymore. It was a pattern, and patterns mean something, even if you don't know what yet. A week passed, then 2. No more sightings, no movement, nothing unusual, but the silence. It wasn't normal anymore. It was loaded, like the mountain was holding its breath, waiting to speak again. One evening, I sat outside the comms tent, watching the ridge in the dying light. Elliot came over, sat next to me, didn't say anything. For a long time, we just listened. Then he said it, so soft I almost missed it. What if that boy wasn't the one out of place? I turned. "You think we are?" He didn't answer, just stared at the trail. And for the first time, I realized something. Maybe we weren't guarding that road. Maybe it was guarding us. Not from an enemy, not from attack, but from crossing over into something we couldn't come back from. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked the perimeter alone, slow, deliberate. There was no fear, just awareness. Like every step mattered more than before. When I passed the northern fence, I stopped, looked down at the trail, the same winding stretch of dirt we'd stared at for days. Nothing moved, not a sound, but I felt it, like something was there, just outside the edge of what we could see. A presence, not hostile, not welcoming either, just watching, not for us, but for something we hadn't done yet. The next morning, I wrote in my journal, first time in months. I didn't write about the war, didn't write about the outpost, didn't even write about the boy. Just one sentence. Some places don't want to be forgotten. And somehow, I knew that road would never let us forget. Days passed. No sightings, no shadows, no movement, but the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it grew stronger. Like the trail wasn't just part of the land, but something alive, something aware. Ryan started drawing maps, not tactical ones, not for missions, just sketches of the terrain, where the goats walked, where the boy had first appeared, where the breeze always changed direction. Elliot kept marking time, same hour, same night, same moon phase, like he was waiting for something to happen again at the exact right moment. And me? I stopped seeing the trail as a threat. I started wondering what might be at the end of it, because whatever that boy was, whatever message he carried, it wasn't finished. It was leading somewhere, and slowly, we were beginning to follow. One evening, Elliot called us over. He'd drawn something new, not just a map, but a sequence, circles, patterns, phases of the moon, wind direction, all centered around that one trail. I think it's trying to show us something, he said. Ryan frowned. The road? No, Elliot whispered. The pattern. I didn't laugh, didn't even question it, because deep down, I felt it too. This wasn't random. Something was repeating, calling, not in words, not in signs, but in rhythm, like a drum beat buried under silence, the kind only certain hearts can hear. That night, we sat by the edge of the ridge, didn't speak, just listened, and somewhere in the dark, we heard it, software subtle, the faintest sound, like a bell or a footstep, echoing from deep within the mountain, calling us. It was leading somewhere, and slowly, we were beginning to follow. The next day, we asked for a scouting pass. Nothing official, no full patrol, just a terrain check. Our captain barely looked up. Stay within comms range, he said. We geared up, packed light, no mission brief, no expectations, just us, our maps, and the trail. It felt different that day, less like ground, more like memory. The rocks didn't shift underfoot. The wind didn't push back. Everything felt allowed, like the road wanted us there. Elliot walked ahead, Ryan behind. I stayed in the center, every step slower than the last. Then we reached the bend, the same one where the boy had vanished. Nothing was there, but the air. It changed, warm, still, heavy, with something unspoken. And for the first time, I wasn't hoping to spot the boy. I was hoping he would spot us. Because whatever this was, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. After that walk, something in us shifted. No one said it out loud. No one needed to. It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was presence. Like we'd been seen, acknowledged, and somehow accepted. We still did our jobs, still ran drills, still carried out orders, but there was a softness now in how we moved, in how we spoke. I caught Ryan staring at the trail during meals, lost in thought, not worried, just connected. Elliot started drawing again, but not the boy, not the goats, just light, breaking through trees, falling across rocks, touching the earth like a memory. Me? I started writing. Not reports, not logs, just thoughts. And in those pages, for the first time in months, I didn't sound like a soldier. I sounded like someone remembering who they used to be. Ryan started waking up earlier just to sit by the fence. Didn't bring a rifle, didn't bring coffee, just himself. He'd sit for an hour watching the trail as if waiting for it to speak. He told me once, it's not about seeing him again. It's about being seen. By whatever that was. I knew what he meant. It wasn't religion. It wasn't ghosts. It wasn't anything you could name. It was something older. Something that didn't care about uniforms or ranks. It cared if you listened, if you respected the quiet, and in that stillness, we changed. We looked at the land differently, at each other differently, not as tools, not as soldiers, but as souls trying to remember something they forgot long before the war. That trail, it had become more than a path. It was a mirror, and every time we looked at it, we saw a little more of who we were. Eventually, it wasn't just about the boy anymore. It was about us, what we had seen, what we hadn't, what we were still waiting to understand. Command never asked, intel never followed up. To them, nothing happened, but something had. Something that didn't leave burn marks or bullet holes. It left something quieter, deeper, perspective. We started talking differently. Not about missions, not about threats, but about dreams, about signs, about meaning. And no one mocked it, because whatever we'd brushed against on that mountain, it changed us. Not with answers, but with presence. The kind that makes you pause before stepping on a trail. The kind that makes you listen to silence, as if it were speaking. We were still soldiers. Still men in uniform, but under the gear, we were pilgrims, following a path we never knew we were on until it found us. Years later, long after I left the service, I found myself thinking about that trail again. Not the firefights, not the outpost, not even the boy, just the trail. I'd be walking home from work or sitting in traffic, and suddenly, I'd feel it. That same stillness, that same question, like something was gently tapping on the back of my mind, asking if I was still listening. Most people forget war when it ends. They fold it up like a flag, put it in a box, and move on. But this never ended. It followed me, quietly, patiently. And the older I got, the more I understood. That trail wasn't about ghosts. It wasn't even about war. It was about attention, about presence, about learning to see what doesn't want to be seen, and feel what can't be explained. Elliot moved to Oregon, teaches art now, still draws light. Ryan took a job up north. He walks the forest every morning, still listens. And me, I write, not to make sense of it, but to honor it, to honor the silence, the mystery, the boy, the moment we were no longer just soldiers, but witnesses, because there are stories the world doesn't want told, not because they're secrets, but because they ask too much. They ask us to pause, to feel, to remember that logic isn't everything. Sometimes meaning arrives quietly, through a flicker of night vision, through goats walking silently, through a boy who never needed to speak. So if you're out there, on your own road, and the world gets too loud, too fast, find stillness and listen, because some trails weren't meant to be marched. They were meant to be followed. Not all stories need closure. Some just need to be remembered. We go through life thinking that every mystery has a solution, that every strange moment must lead to logic, to science, to something we can name and file away. But maybe Some things exist not to be solved, but to be felt. Maybe that boy wasn't a ghost. Maybe he wasn't a sign. Maybe he was a reminder that there are still corners of this world and of ourselves that we haven't explored. Places that don't ask to be understood. They ask to be respected, listened to, honored, and if we're lucky, we get a glimpse, a flicker, a feeling that stays with us long after the moment passes, not to haunt us, but to guide us. Because some stories aren't lessons, they're invitations. Maybe you've never walked a mountain trail in Afghanistan, but I bet you've had a moment, a split second when you felt something you couldn't explain, a dream that lingered, a place that felt familiar before you ever arrived. You're not crazy. You're not alone. You're awake. We live in a loud world, always rushing, always explaining. But sometimes the most important thing you can do is pause and listen to the quiet, to the strange, to the part of you that still believes in wonder. That's not weakness. That's remembrance. So the next time you feel it, that flicker of something beyond, don't dismiss it. Follow it. If this story stayed with you, even just a little, don't forget to subscribe. We're not here to shout. We're here to remember, to explore the quiet places, the hidden roads, the echoes of things most people overlook. And if that's something you've been searching for, you're in the right place. Click subscribe, hit the bell, and join us on the trail between worlds, because some stories aren't told to everyone, only to those who are ready to hear them.